Chair. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to rise and speak to clauses 1, 2 and 3 of the Holidays Amendment Bill. And Mr Chair, the part that I really want to focus on is in fact clause 3, the Principal Act that is amended, because what the bill says is that it's the Holidays Act 2003 that's amended. And I want to pose the question whether in fact the Health and Safety and Employment Act should also be amended as a result of what's proposed here in this bill. Because, Mr Chair, under the Health and Safety and Employment Act, 19-something, brought in under Labour, let's just say that, it actually requires the employer to take all practicable steps to keep employees safe at work. All practicable steps. And I wonder, Mr Chair, whether in fact this piece of legislation that we're debating here tonight in this chamber actually complies with that requirement. Because we know, and all the research and evidence tells us, that there's a really strong link between people's the hours of work that people have been engaged in, their ability to have had rest, and yes, their ability to have had holidays. And the link between that and their fatigue at work, and therefore their susceptibility to making a mistake, having an accident, hurting themselves, or even worse, perhaps a fatality in the workplace. And we know the evidence is really strong about that. Now, Mr Chair, what this bill does that we're debating is it actually gives an incentive particularly to low-paid workers, to cash up their right to have a week's annual leave, recuperate, do all those things that good health and safety practice tell us is really important in the workplace, gives them an incentive to actually not do that, to actually give up that week of annual leave, and therefore put themselves at greater risk of actually having a workplace accident. Now, we know in New Zealand that in many of our workplaces, because we focus a lot on primary production, that in fact many of our workplaces are in very dangerous industries, and we do have a high level of workplace accidents, and increasingly under this government, a larger number of workplace fatalities. And so I do ask the question about whether, as well as amending the Holidays Act 2003, whether the government, well, Tauhanari doesn't seem to take this very seriously about workers' rights to be kept healthy and safe at work. But I'm asking the question about whether the requirement under the Health and Safety and Employment Act still holds true if we amend this Act, because there is the requirement for the employer to take all practicable steps to keep employees safe at work. So does that mean, Mr Chair, that if a worker comes along and says, I'd like to cash up my extra week, or my fourth week, thank you, the Labour government, my fourth week of annual leave, I'd like to cash that up, does that requirement under the Health and Safety and Employment Act require that employer to say, well, actually, because of the nature of our workplace and because fatigue is a really big problem in this workplace, I can't allow you to do that because I would not be upholding my legal responsibility under the Health and Safety and Employment Act to take all practicable steps to keep you safe. So no, I can't agree to that. And Mr Chair, I think that it's a question perhaps that, I don't know, hasn't been asked in this debate so far, and I'd really appreciate if the Minister and the Chair would rise and respond to whether in fact it is the Health and Safety and Employment Act as well as the Holidays Act that ought to be amended to make this something that is lawful and legal. The commencement date, of course, is pretty interesting, the 1st of April 2011. I'm not sure. I think that was some pretty witty official who must have come up with that, surely. April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day they've chosen as the commencement date for this piece of legislation. And I think it's sadly very appropriate. But I hope that I'm wrong, because
Chair.
I call